The city of Boston is an American treasure, known as being the cradle for the American Revolution, also known for educational institutions, Ivy League schools to be exact, such as Harvard, also Yale, Boston College, just to name a few. Boston is also rich in sports culture. Oh, yeah, and Boston is also a food city. And we want to welcome someone that knows an infamous and a famous restaurant to many all over the world. Let's welcome him to the program. He is the general manager of the Union Oyster House in Boston, Massachusetts, Jim Malinn. Jim, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thank you for having me on today to talk about the Union Oyster House.
Absolutely, sir. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. So before we talk about the Boston Celtics and the NBA Finals and things of that nature, you are the general manager of the Union Oyster House in Boston, Massachusetts. And let's start from the beginning. What are the origins of the Union Oyster House and how it all began?
Well, the Oyster House is the oldest restaurant in continuous service in the United States. We have been serving the public since 1826. Now, prior to being a restaurant, the building was used as a dry goods store in the early or mid-1700s. The building itself, it sits among the oldest in the city of Boston. It's so old that it predates building records. So many years ago, we had some architectural historians come in to assess how old the building was, and they were able to date it back to about 1705. As I mentioned, in 1826, it became the Union Oyster House, and we still have the original mahogany oyster bar that was here then. Now, in terms of history, 2003, we were recognized as a national landmark by the Interior Department, and at that time, we had Andrew Card, who was President Bush's chief of staff, come up and present an award. And we have that hanging over our lobster tank just as our customers enter. Andrew was a Massachusetts native, so it's only fitting for him to come up and bring that up there. As I said, we've been open to the public and serving, and it's been, quite a trip for all of us.
Wow, it has indeed been a trip, and what a historical facts that you've given us about the restaurant, Jim. And certainly, I want to just continue to talk about just the history of the restaurant for a moment. We know that Boston has a unique history with, as I stated in the intro, with the Ivy League institutions, with Harvard, Yale, Boston College, and Boston University, Tufts, just to name a few. Boston is a rich university town, a college town, I should say, and again, the historical nature going back to the American Revolution and things of that nature. I wanted to ask you, how significant is the location of the restaurant just in terms of getting to not only to venues downtown, but also when people come in and go to the different universities, and then also, too, when they're on the historical trail of the city and wanting to check out the restaurant?
Well, right. As you mentioned, Ed, we're on the Freedom Trail. The Freedom Trail is a great attraction for people, whether they're coming because they have a family member at one of the universities, or they may have somebody who's ill at one of our world-famous hospitals, and they come down. We're right behind Boston City Hall. We're about a block down from Quincy Market. Now, Quincy Market is a very, very old institution in Boston as well. In 1976, it was reopened by James Rouse, who was a developer from Baltimore, and it became a very, very popular attraction. It's kind of waned, or had its day in the sun, so to speak, but at one point, more people passed through Faneuil Hall than passed through the gates of Disney World, to give you an idea of how much a large an audience it attracted. We're right around the corner from the New England Aquarium and the beautiful Boston waterfront. So people flock here. And, especially since COVID, now that everyone has outside dining, a nice time of the year like this, people are down there, just enjoying themselves, and sliding in hopefully to our restaurant to have something to eat.
Wow, that sounds really awesome. And I know Boston, not Boston, similar to not just cities on the East Coast, but in a lot of major metropolitan cities, public transportation is frequented quite often, and Boston is known for its tea. What's the easy access like to the restaurant if you're taking the tea?
We have several stops near us. We have Government Center. We have, let's see, Government Center is about it right now. We have Haymarket, but that's undergoing some construction at the moment. But we can be reached by several, lengths or several arms of the transportation system. And even if one were to come in via train, North Station or South Station, it's only a 10-minute walk from our restaurants. Boston is a very tea-driven city, public transit-driven city. It's a very difficult city, even for natives to, traverse because of the way the roads are laid out. So you're better off to the tea to get here.
Wow, very convenient and very accessible. And speaking of being very accessible, not just the city of Boston, but really the state of Massachusetts is not landlocked. And you have a lot of bodies of water that surround the state of Massachusetts. In Boston, you have Cape Cod, and then also you have Narragansett Bay. The Atlantic Ocean is nearby as well. So I wanted to ask you, how does the restaurant take advantage of food resources in the state of Massachusetts?
Well, it's, we're sitting on a bounty of food from the sea, as you mentioned. So all of our shellfish is, for the most part, is local. It's drawn from the waters of Massachusetts, Maine, sometimes the coast of Canada if we need to. But most of the oysters come from the Cape or from areas around Rhode Island. So there's a constant local supply that comes in on a daily basis from there. All of our oyster companies are local. They're either dealing with a group of oyster growers, or in some cases we have growers bring it directly to our door. So we take advantage of that. The same with the finfish, cod, haddock, things like that we sell. Those all sleep in the Atlantic the night before they're brought here, or they're in northern, not northern, but Canadian cold water. So we're very fortunate to have all of our products right at our front door.
Well, you guys definitely take advantage of the resources, as you said, with Boston being surrounded by water and, of course, the neighboring areas like Rhode Island. I want to stay just with a specific body of water. The Charles River runs through Boston and its surrounding areas. Do you guys utilize the Charles River as one of the sources to get your catch, or is it primarily Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and the other areas that you mentioned?
No, it'd be Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all these saltwater bodies. The Charles River, except for the estuary, there'd be no, it's predominantly fresh water. But, as I said, most of the shellfish is from the Cape, and but it's all from the areas you mentioned. We do not utilize the Charles River for that.
All right, awesome. And certainly you guys take advantage of the resources. We're getting the cod and the seafood and things of that nature. And I want to talk about something really good, and that's the items served at the restaurant. So can you just tell our listening audience out there the items that are served at the Union Oyster House?
Sure. We harken back. We serve traditional New England seafare. And what do I mean by that? Well, some of our signature dishes are, if you were to come in, you would be sat and immediately you would have placed at your table some homemade, in our own bakery, cornbread with beautiful, beautiful cornbread. We get a lot of compliments from Southerners, which is high praise. And then you could scan our menu, and you have a choice of a number of things. We serve clam chowder. It's a creamy, light clam chowder. It's, I'd say, one of the best you will ever have. And we serve quite a bit of that. We probably ladle out close to 10,000 gallons a year of clam chowder. Other items that are very popular, haddock, cod. Now, some of your viewers are probably familiar with the term Scrod. Scrod is actually, that's on our menu. It's very popular. It's not actually a fish. It's a derivation of toothfish. Many years ago, one of the restaurants, would serve what was called the catch of the day, and invariably it was serving either haddock or cod or haddock or cod. And the word Scrod was derived from that. Some places use haddock, some places use cod. It's basically a beautiful piece of white Atlantic seafood that's put on a plate, and it's delicious. We serve cod as haddock, and it's a wonderful entree. People love it. Lobsters, we serve probably 12,000 lobsters a year. It's very, very popular. Over the past few years, I'm going back maybe 5 years, we've seen more and more customers defer to having a lobster roll because they think it's much, much easier to consume. A lobster can be pretty messy business if you don't know what you're doing. But the lobster rolls have become extremely popular here and in most restaurants in the greater Boston area. Fried seafood platters. People are on vacation and they're dreaming of fried clams or some type of fried seafood. We serve an awful lot of that. The great, reviews. People love it. And what other items would I say? We have some dishes that are a little bit of seafood and Italian. We've got a beautiful shrimp scampi that's very popular. We have a scallop and shrimp dish served on rice with a wonderful sauce, and those are very, very popular dishes that people love.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm hungry just listening to you describe some of the items served at the restaurants. It's all delicious. I want to talk some about the items that you mentioned. I'd like to start off with the cornbread for a moment. You mentioned that a lot of people, particularly Southerners, rave about the cornbread. I know you can't give out the recipes because it's a secret and things of that nature. Is the cornbread house-made or is there a special mix? If you can disclose the information on that.
Well, two things. We do give out the recipe. We have it on print at the restaurant, and we're not jealous about that. People ask for it, and we have it printed at the front desk. They can get it. The viewers could go online and request it, and we could send it out. But it is made in our own bakery. We make pans and pans and pans of it, and it's just it's wonderful. It's kind of a funny thing when everybody in Boston's familiar with what they call the freshman 20. That means like a lot of students go away to college and they end up eating institutional food and putting on about 20 pounds the first year. And we have what I like to call the Cornbread 15. All our employees get addicted to it. I rarely eat it anymore, but it's delicious. But it's just a very, very nice sweet cornbread, and it's got a touch of molasses in there that just, heightens, the pleasure of having it. But as I said, we don't hoard it. We also sell a mix of it in our gift shop.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Can you explain what's in the Cornbread 15 or the Cornbread 20?
It's a cornbread meal with the molasses. As I said, it's, whipped up together, excuse me, in our bakery, put into the ovens. It rises and it goes out that day. But, nothing mysterious about it. But
all right, awesome. And you mentioned about something that's uniquely, not just Boston, but uniquely New England with some of the seafood that you mentioned served at the restaurant, like cod, scallops, of course, the lobster. Yeah. Is there any, I should say, I know different regions have their thing in terms of seasonings that they put on their seafood or their fresh meats and produce and stuff. Is there any type of special New England seasonings that are used in the cod and the scallops and the lobster that make it unique?
Well, we have different items. If somebody wants a little spicy, we'll blacken a fish, put on some Cajun spices or something that add a little heat to it. But for the most part, it's just breadcrumb seasonings, with a little bit of seafood base to them, and we keep it simple, and if people want, often with the fried seafood, they like to dip it in a tartar sauce, which is basically a mayonnaise and relish sauce that enhances the flavor of the fried seafood. We don't mess with the food a lot. It's what you're getting is what nature provided.
Okay, awesome, fair enough. And you mentioned something that's also uniquely New England, and that's Scrod. Can you explain to the listeners where Scrod is particularly found? Is it found in the New England area, or as you mentioned, you get some of the catch in the cold waters of Canada, where Scrod primarily harvested and caught at?
Scrod comes from the Georges Banks, or the southern Canadian waters. They're interchangeable, and it's basically a deep, cold water Atlantic whitefish. As I mentioned, it's haddock or cod. But years ago, it was the Parker House, which is an older hotel and restaurant in Boston that would serve it, and that's where its genesis was, where people would come in and ask for the haddock or cod. So it's basically, it's a nice Atlantic whitefish. And as I said, most places will use either the haddock or the cod. They're very similar, but it's a very popular dish. You can have it fried. Most people tend to have it broiled, as I mentioned earlier. Just some breadcrumbs, a little bit of butter on top. If they want to season it, they'll probably put a lemon or, a little bit of tartar sauce with it. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful fish, and you put your fork in it, and it just falls apart. It's just so delicious. And that is something which is pretty much New England associated fish.
Wow, that sounds delicious right there. I mean, I'm getting hungry already, man. The dishes sound wonderful. And I just want to talk now about some of the most popular items. People go to different restaurants, and they always have their go-to items. They want this, or they want that, or they want a specific dish. What are the most popular items that are served at the restaurant?
Well, as I mentioned, people come in, the cornbread is automatically put there. Clam chowder. Let's see, what do we serve? Probably between cups and bowls, I think, 125, 150,000 servings of that a year. It's something people like. A lot of times you'll have somebody even split it. The other one, which is very popular, the lobster rolls. We serve over 30,000 of those a year. Scrod is very, very popular, and the fried seafood. Those are the go-to items people are looking for. And years ago, especially in the summer, people would come in and just have their heart set on getting a lobster. So this time of year, we really see those sales kick up, and you can just see the eagerness in the diners' eyes as that lobster is put in front of them. People work hard all year, and whether they're coming on vacation or they're just stopping in Boston, passing through, they want to sit down and have a good meal, and we want to take care of that desire indeed. And it's kind of nice to see it when you see a smile on somebody's face like that. A couple of items I mentioned that we serve that people seem to really love, a lot of the locals too, the shrimp scampi and that shrimp and scallop over the rice. It's just a wonderful, wonderful combination to have.
Wow, all of it sounds great. All of it sounds so delicious. And you mentioned about one of the most popular items served at the restaurant, and you mentioned about a specific sandwich. Now, in New Orleans and much of Louisiana, there's the po' boy, and Philadelphia has the cheesesteak, and New York has the hero or the sub sandwich, but Boston and the New England area specifically has the lobster roll. Can you explain to the listeners what the lobster roll is?
Lobster roll is just on a nice Brisson bun. We butter that up, and then we take lobster meat. We season it very lightly with, a little bit of lemon, just a touch of mayonnaise, a couple of spices here or there, and just put that in the bun, and it's served with, a side of French fries or something else if you prefer. And, just a wonderful way to enjoy lobster. you bite into that, you get the essence of the beautiful bread holding that wonderful lobster meat, and it's just a very flavor-packed experience. People love it, and it's an easier way of having the lobster than having to crack the shell and pull the meat out. So it's become very, very popular. We also have, you mentioned, like the poor boys sandwich down in Louisiana. We have like a fried oyster roll, which is similar to that, and the other one we have is the fried clam roll. Both very, very popular. The clams, of course, are native to Rhode Island, and that's something people find in New England, up and down the coast of any of the states.
Wow, all of that sounds great. Sounds awesome. You mentioned about the bun that's used for the lobster roll. Is the bun native to Boston, or is it native to the New England area, or is it outsourced?
No, it's something that's made. One of our vendors makes. I don't think it's particularly native to us, but it's just, some places you'll get stuff on just a hot dog roll. This is just a grade up of it, so you're enjoying not just what's in the sandwich, but what's wrapping the sandwich. We just happen to work with a tremendous bread company that supplies us.
Okay, good. And then now we talked about the most popular items at the restaurant. Now I want to talk now about not just the city of Boston, but just the New England area as a whole. Mm-hmm. For those that have never been, what are some of the things that you tell them about the area?
All right, about New England, like you mentioned earlier, Ed, you were talking about how we're surrounded by water. If you look at Boston geographically, and you put a pin in Boston, and you took a radius of 50 miles, and you just swung that out, if you go in all directions, if you go south, west, and north, and then, of course, you go east into the water, I would challenge you to find another city in the country that offers the geographical diversity that's available to us in Boston. Within that 50, let's call it 100 miles. 100 miles, you have the entire Cape Cod, including Wellfleet, which is the very tip of the arm of Cape Cod. You've got Long Island Sound. You've got the hills of the mountains of the Adirondacks in New York. You've got the Green Mountains in Vermont, the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and then you swing over to Maine, and you've got that wonderful seacoast loaded with all those wonderful treasures of the sea. So there's a lot to see and a lot to do, and there's a lot of different seasons. Believe it or not, the two busiest months of the year are July, and that's because people are on vacation with families traveling, and they all make Boston a stop on their trip to New England. And the other is October. People say, October, why October? Well, October, we put on a display with the foliage that's available in New England. And it's also the prime time for travel by the people who have the most money and the most time, i.e. the retired. So they come in motor coaches, bus loads. They go up and they view the beautiful foliage in northern New England, and they always pass through Boston. So those are some of the things that you can enjoy. Winters aren't the nicest, but once you get through a winter, and you can really appreciate the beautiful spring that we've been enjoying. So that's what I would tell people about, New England. It's something to do here every season of the year, and we can pretty much accommodate any desire or need you want. You have the history. I mean, restaurants are, I've always said, every restaurant's the same, but every restaurant's different. Well, what do you mean by that, Jimmy? Every restaurant, we do three things. We serve food, we serve beverage, and we serve the experience. What is the experience? The experience might be for some, you're up, say, like the top of one of it's called the Prudential Center, up at a white tablecloth looking down on the city of Boston, enjoying that expansive view and enjoying fine dining. McDonald's, you go in, you take your family in there. There might be, a playground out there to enjoy, but you have basically having food, beverage, and experience. You come to the Union Oyster House. We have food, beverage, and history. Every room you go in, there's something different to see and do. One of my favorite things is when people come in, and they're checking in, To the right is what we call our Wall of Fame. We have all kinds of little plaques about various celebrities, presidents, politicians, sports people that have visited us. And as you go through the restaurant, all of the walls have plaques that tell a story were published about the restaurant throughout the world. So it's very, very interesting. And for somebody who enjoys history, it's a nice stop to have while you're in Boston.
Wow, I mean, it sounds like you said it's a lot of history and also a lot of fun things to do. I mean, it is true, knowing about not just the East Coast, but specifically the New England area, the winters can be rough. But as you said, once you survive them, you really have an appreciation for the four seasons. And as you mentioned about Boston being surrounded by the water, enjoying the water, then, of course, having close proximity to the mountains and stuff is truly sounds like a one-of-a-kind experience. And one of the one-of-a-kind experiences about Boston is the sports. And we know that the Bostonians and people in the New England area, they really love their sports, from the Red Sox to the Bruins, also the Patriots. Some guy named Tom Brady, I think he was pretty good as their quarterback, right? And
he was pretty well known.
People, yeah, was not too shabby. And the Boston Celtics, the history of the Celtics, Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, of course, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, and so on and so forth. And Bostonians have really loved their Celtics for such a long time. I want to ask you, what's the buzz like in the city of Boston and the New England area with the Celtics being in this year's NBA Finals?
We're just so excited. I mean, it's been a long wait, since '08, and it was devastating last year. So we're getting all revved up for this. What the mayor has done, because there's so much buzz about them, is the area around the Boston Garden. The streets are shut down, and it becomes like a festival prior to the game with all of the restaurants and the places. So people go down there, hang out, have a good time, before the game, and then get to enjoy the game. The whole region's pulling for them. I'm old enough to remember the teams of the mid-'60s on, so I saw some of the legends. I was lucky to see Havlicek, to see Russell, to see Sam and Casey Jones and those guys, and they racked up like 8 championships in a row. And then to see Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and, the Chief, that big three was just incredible in the 80s, so we were very, very lucky. And basketball's always, Red Sox, we're all diehard Red Sox fans, but for years and years and for generations and generations, the Celtics have always been like a home team favorite. People just love them. They're cloaked in glory, they're cloaked in history, and it's just such an exciting game to watch. So we're all very, very happy about that. We're hoping last year, prior to Game 7, Paul Pierce came in and had lunch at the restaurant. Now, he's been here before, so he had some pictures taken with him. He's a great guy. He was in the second generation of the great, the big three, and just a very, very nice person. So.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Of course, we can't forget about the other big three, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. I mean, there's just so many great Celtic memories, man. Those championship banners at the Garden, man, it's just it's a sight to see. I want to ask you, you mentioned about going as far back as the days with Russell and Havlicek and so on and so forth. What were games like at the old Boston Garden as opposed to going to games at the TD Garden?
The old Boston Garden they had virtually nothing for air conditioning. And I don't know if you remember when they were playing the Lakers, I think it was 84, 86, I can't remember. There was a picture on the front page of the Boston Globe after the Celtics beat them. And it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar sitting on the sidelines with a mask over his face for oxygen because he just could not take the heat in the Garden. It was just incredible. The new Garden, of course, is, absolutely beautiful compared to the old one, but the old one just had so much history. It was a wonderful place to go. I saw, concerts there. I saw you go to a doubleheader, you'd see the Celtics, and then that night they'd chase the parquet floor over the ice, and you get to see the Bruins play. So it was quite a place. But, I mean, in terms of amenities and the building, I saw it come down, and it was good riddance at that point. It had served its purpose.
Wow, man, I tell you one thing, nothing like the old Garden. I tell you, I mean, memories are being made at TD Garden, but, man, so many memories were made at the old Boston Garden. And before I let you go, sir, I mentioned about some of Boston being a sports town, Boston Marathon. I mean, that's been a tradition for decades. How does the restaurant get a lot of business during the marathon time?
Oh, absolutely. Again, I mentioned the two busiest months, but the two busiest long weekends, because the marathon weekend is a long weekend in Boston. We have what's called, I forget the holiday, but the marathon is run on that, and it attracts. What happens is on Thursday you start getting people coming into Boston. I like to see you have the runners, and I could say the groupies come in. So it's not just runners; they're bringing family, they're bringing friends. The economic impact is incredible within the city. Then they go through, and they don't leave till about Tuesday. As far as like the runners coming into the restaurant, we'll see them prior to that. We won't see them the day before because they go out and they carbo load. But the day after, that Monday, right after the marathon, from 4 o'clock on, you can tell who the runners are. They're walking cramped over in agony, and they just want to get some protein in their body. So it's it's a joy to see it, and it really is it's a wonderful, wonderful weekend in the city. Generally, the weather is conducive to running, but we have had occasions where it's either poured or it's been in the 90s. But it's just such an important part of the city and its traditions.
Indeed, a festive time during the Boston Marathon, and Boston loving their sports, and certainly the Boston Celtics just riding a high right now as they prepare for this year's NBA Finals. This was a lot of fun, Jim. Thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. Tell everybody where they can find Union Oyster House on the internet, any social media platforms. Let the listeners know that as well.
Sure. Our website is unioysterhouse.com. And you can find us on Facebook or X or I believe any of the other Instagram as well. Yeah, so we're available there.
You heard it from him. He is Jim Malinn. He is the general manager of the Union Oyster House in the city of Boston, and certainly not only loving the Celtics, but also talking about the wonderful dishes at the legendary restaurant, Union Oyster House. Jim, thank you so much once again. And if ever you would like to come back on, just feel free to let us know.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And that's going to do it. And until next time, everybody, have a great one and you be safe.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Remember to click like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.